Welcome to the Professor English podcast, where we don't just talk about English, we practice English. My name is Ryan, and I'm your host. Have you ever wanted to read a book in English? Have you ever thought about improving your English vocabulary through reading? If you answered yes to these questions, you're in the right place. In each episode of this podcast, we are going to explore the book 1984 by George Orwell, paragraph by paragraph. First, I will read the paragraph, then we will examine the contents of the paragraph to make sure the meaning is clear, and then we will do a fluency and listening comprehension exercise to practice some interesting expressions that we find in the paragraph. Sound good? Great. Before we start, I just want to remind you, if you prefer to have a little visual help, you can always access the video version of this podcast on my YouTube channel, Professor English ESL Class. Now let's jump right in and take a look at the second part of paragraph 2 of 1984. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39, had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster, with the enormous face, gazed from the wall. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. "Big Brother is watching you," the caption beneath it ran. Let's take a closer look at the first sentence. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. You already know the word drive, as in, he drives a car, but this is drive in a different sense. It's drive as in the sense of an initiative. Everyone contributes to reach a special goal. For example, a food drive. Everyone collects food, and maybe the special goal is to give it to the poor. A clothes drive. Everyone contributes clothes, again, maybe to give it to people who don't have clothes. The word drive is frequently used for charities because that is the definition of a charity. Everyone contributes something with the goal of helping other people. What do you suppose an economy drive is? Maybe saving money? Everybody does something to save money. Everybody avoids using electricity during the day so that as a group we save money. So you can imagine that the government told citizens, we have to avoid using energy as much as possible so that we have enough extra money later for a special purpose. In this purpose, it is Hate Week. We have to save resources for Hate Week. This is why Winston is not using the elevator. He knows that during the day, there is no electricity. The reason there is no electricity is because all of the citizens are choosing not to use electricity during the day, and there's a special reason for it. That reason is so that there will be extra money to celebrate Hate Week. It was part of the economy drive in preparation for Hate Week. It was part of a collective effort to save money so that they could prepare for Hate Week. Now let's look at the next sentence. The flat was 7 flights up, and Winston, who was 39, had a varicose ulcer above his right ankle, went slowly, resting several times on the way. The flat was 7 flights up. Flight is just another way to say floor. The flat was 7 floors up. Winston had a varicose ulcer. The word ulcer is a word for a very sore area. That is a simplification. But if you want to, but if you haven't seen that word before, it means he has problems with his ankle. It always hurts him. Now we know he has to walk up to the 7th floor, and his health isn't good. His ankle area always hurts. He went slowly, resting several times on the way. On each landing, opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. A landing is where a set of stairs starts or finishes. Most of the time a landing is on a new floor, but sometimes a landing is in between floors. If you're watching the video version of this podcast on YouTube, on Professor English ESL class, you can see a picture of a mid-floor landing. The poster opposite the lift shaft, or the poster was opposite the lift shaft, or the poster was opposite the elevator shaft. A shaft is a long, narrow space. The elevator or lift is like a box, and this box fits and moves up and down the building in the shaft. The shaft is the long, narrow tube or place where the elevator moves, the elevator shaft. Because the poster is opposite the shaft, it means that when you leave the elevator, when the doors open, the first thing you see is the enormous face. Opposite the lift shaft, the poster with the enormous face gazed from the wall. A gaze is a look. Gaze and look are very similar words. Gaze usually means look with more attention, more concentration, look with more purpose. So when the elevator doors open, the first thing you see will be this enormous face, and it feels like the face is looking at you, concentrating on you. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you about when you move. Contrive here means made or manufactured. The picture was made in a special way for a special purpose. Because of this special design, it looks like the eyes are watching you as you move past it. Big Brother is watching you, the caption beneath it ran. All right, let's summarize this paragraph in very simple language, and then let's practice something very interesting about this paragraph. Winston has to walk up to his apartment, which is on the 7th floor. This is difficult for him because he's very unhealthy, and he has problems where his ankle area always hurts. On each floor, opposite the elevator, you see the same enormous picture of a face, and under the face is written, Big Brother is watching you. Did I miss anything? Do you have any questions about this paragraph? Leave a comment so we can discuss it. Now, let's take a look at a very interesting phrase from this paragraph and practice how to use it. The picture was so contrived that the eyes follow you about. As you probably have already noticed while studying English, the word so has many, many uses. The way it is used here can be very useful for you, but it is definitely not normally talked about in a typical ESL class. The word so here means made in a particular way, done for a particular reason. If the way to use it is not clear yet, don't worry. Now we're going to practice using it, and at the end of this listening comprehension and fluency exercise, you will understand how to use it and what it means. Let's look at how to use it in a sentence. Here is a sentence. John parked the car in the street. John parked the car in the street. Can you repeat that sentence? John parked the car in the street. John parked the car in the street. John parked the car in the street. Now this is an active voice sentence. Let's change it to a passive voice sentence. Don't be scared that I'm asking you to use passive voice. If you're not sure how to make a passive voice sentence or what the difference is between a passive voice and an active voice sentence is, please look for my passive voice episode and review the information. I will provide a link for you. But if you are familiar with the passive voice, change this sentence, John parked the car in the street, into the passive voice. The car was parked in the street. The car was parked. The car was parked in the street. Okay, great job. Now, let's add the word so in front of the word parked. The car was so parked. The car was so parked. This changes the meaning of the sentence. It means the car was positioned in a very special way for a very special reason. So it wasn't the typical parking, but it was parked in a special way for some reason. The car was so parked. Let's make a why question with that sentence. The car was so parked. Why was the car so parked? Why was the car so parked? This question means, why was the car parked in a very special way? What was the reason for parking the car in this particular way? To give the answer, we'll use the infinitive form of the verb. Here is the reason: to avoid scratches from other cars. To avoid scratches from other cars. Let's put both of these ideas together. The car was so parked to avoid scratches from other cars. The car was so parked to avoid scratches from other cars. The car was parked in a special way, maybe far away from other cars, or maybe at an angle. Did you ever see that somebody has a very expensive car and then they park it using like 3 spaces so that no car can park near it? This is what we're talking about. The car was so parked to avoid scratches from other cars. All right, super duper job. Let's try another example. We'll start with an active voice sentence. They built the house. They built the house. Let's change that to a passive voice sentence. The house was built. The house was built. The house was built. Now, let's add the word so in front of the word built. And this will change the meaning of the sentence. The house was so built. The house was so built. This sentence means the house is built in a special way for a special reason. The original sentence, the house was built, is a complete idea, but this new sentence, the house was so built, is incomplete because we have to say a reason. What's different about it? What was the purpose of building it differently? So let's ask a why question to find the reason that the house was built in a special way. Make a why question with the house was so built. Why was the house so built? Why was the house so built? This question means, why was the house built in a special way? What was the reason for building it differently than normal buildings? Let's give an answer using the infinitive form of a verb. To survive earthquakes. To survive earthquakes. Let's put the two ideas together. The house was so built to survive earthquakes. And what this means is the house is built in a special way, and the reason it was built in a special way was so that nothing would happen to it during an earthquake. Are you starting to get the idea of how to use so in this special way? Let's keep practicing. But before we do, I just want to remind you to subscribe to my podcast if you haven't already. Where else can you learn how to use so in such an interesting way? And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, Professor English ESL class, don't forget to press the like button. It helps my channel so much and lets me know that you want to see more content just like this. Now let's practice using so in this interesting way even more, okay? Here's an active sentence. They made the food. They made the food. They made the food. Now let's change that to passive. The food was made. The food was made. Now let's add the idea of so, meaning the food was prepared in a very special way, for a special reason. The food was so made. The food was so made. Now let's ask a why question. Why was this food prepared differently? Why was it prepared in a way that they don't normally do? What was special about it? What was the special purpose of it? Why was the food so made? Why was the food so made? The reason for this special preparation was to be extra healthy. To be extra healthy. Let's put the two ideas together. The food was so made to be extra healthy. The food was so made to be extra healthy. The food was so made to be extra healthy. All right, super duper job. Let's try one more example. She placed the flowers in the room. She placed the flowers in the room. Can you repeat that? She placed the flowers in the room. Okay, now let's make a passive voice sentence with this example. The flowers were placed in the room. The flowers were placed in the room. The flowers were placed in the room. Okay, now let's add the word so, which will add the idea that the flowers were placed in the room in a special position for a special purpose. The flowers were so placed in the room. The flowers were so placed in the room. Now let's ask a why question, because we want to know what was the special purpose for the special position of the flowers. What was the reason for putting these flowers in a very special place? There was a special reason for that. Why were the flowers so placed in the room? Why were the flowers so placed in the room? Why were the flowers so placed in the room? Okay, here is the reason. And again, using the infinitive form of the verb, we will give the reason. To make the room look more cheerful. To make the room look more cheerful. Now let's put these two ideas together. The flowers were so placed in the room to make the room look more cheerful. The flowers were so placed in the room to make the room look more cheerful. All right, fantastic job. Now, let's revisit the original sentence. It was one of those pictures which are so contrived that the eyes follow you when you move. The eyes follow you about when you move. Remember, contrived here really just means made. So let's reword it a little bit more. It was one of those pictures that was so made that the eyes follow you around when you move. This means they purposely made the picture so that when you're walking past it, it looks like the eyes are following you. That's what it means. That's the special purpose. of the special design. Okay, now let's summarize the entire paragraph in very simple words. Winston is using the stairs to go to the 7th floor apartment. He doesn't try to use the elevator because no one is using electricity during the day. The reason for this is that everyone is saving money to celebrate Hate Week. It's difficult for him to walk up the stairs because he is in bad health and has a painful problem above one of his ankles. On each floor, you can see the same large poster of a man. The picture is designed in a special way. The eyes seem to follow you as you walk past it. On the poster, under the man's face, it says, "Big Brother is watching you." Okay, I hope now you can fully understand this paragraph, but now we've reached the end of this episode, and it's been really fun practicing English with you today, and I hope to see you again very soon. This is a rather experimental way of exploring English, and it takes a lot of work. So if you want to see more videos like this, if you want more podcasts exploring English vocabulary and grammar using 1984, please leave a comment. Let me know that you find this helpful. But until then, until the next paragraph, goodbye.